So basically, as you can see, my comment is make marriage respectable again.
Okay, how do we do that?
Honestly, I remember you did a video, I think this was last year, about 4 or 5 months ago,
Okay.
when you were in your car talking about how to fix marriage.
Yeah.
And in principle, I agree with all the points, but I don't think the punishments, forgive me, I'm just going outside just because it's a bit noisy in my phone.
Mm.
Basically, I don't think the punishments for violating the contract of marriage goes far enough.
Mm.
And I think there needs to be vastly more severe
Remind me what I
social.
said in that video as far as remedying marriage.
If
Was it the one
memories,
where I was talking about taking away child support, default 50-50 custody, no
yes,
alimony,
that was
all
the
that?
one. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, yeah. So for me, I don't think it goes far enough in the social, economical, political penalties.
Hmm.
I think it needs to be vastly more severe in
Like how
order
much
to
more
make it
severe? Like we're
respectable.
talking about dragging women in the street and shaving their head in the public square type of stuff, like they did after World War II
Oh,
for the war brides?
well, one example I did have is, for example, if let's say I'll use you as an example.
Hmm.
Let's say your current long-term girlfriend, you get married, and then she's proven to be guilty of adultery. I
Hmm.
would say one of the major penalties is she gets tattooed all over her body, adulterer, all over her body. Something like
I mean,
something like. I mean, in a sense, you're basically marking their body as
yeah.
a symbol to everyone else that she is
No, I get what
guilty
you're
of
saying, but I
adultery.
mean, like, here's the thing: women love to talk about monogamy and how they're a one woman kind of man, and why do men cheat, and why are men such dogs, and all this bullshit. But true monogamy in the animal kingdom is they're together into perpetuity, and if one of the animals dies, they don't mate with another animal. That's it. Like that's what real monogamy is. So when I hear women go on about monogamy and all this bullshit all the time, it's like that's not true, because if you were truly monogamous, you would be with the guy that you were with from the get-go. That's why I have that chapter in my book about promiscuous primates. I break down all the ways that humans really aren't monogamous or nor good at monogamous, and it has to be a choice. Um, I mean, the way that you describe that, man, it sounds almost a little bit like MGTOW black pill sort of stuff, right? Like, let's tattoo
Yeah,
her
I
with
can understand.
adulterer
Yeah,
all over her body. Let's just like, who
yeah.
cares? If
Yeah,
she's a hoe, just
yeah.
let her go.
Touche, touche. But for me, it was more of a case of making the institution of marriage respectable again.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
more of a case of I'm not trying to sound like the Christ pills, like when you had Chase and
yeah.
who was the other guy I forget. Like they were quite naive because I listened very carefully and made a lot of super chats and that. And
Yeah.
the thing was, they were speaking from a very naive perspective, even though we're like my case, I'm just a bit older than them two were.
Hmm.
Whereas like I'm speaking from a very practical point and also understanding human psychology, but also knowing full well that
Mm.
the best way to create a moral society is to create a moral group of people, and you make
Mm.
examples for those who step out of line.
Well,
Like we
I
did
mean,
in the
if you can
past.
discourage divorce and discourage women from taking advantage of hostile laws which screw men over by changing the laws, that would be a very good first step. I had I had
Oh,
this
I fully agree. Yeah.
lawyer. I can't remember her name, Lauren DeLongo or some shit like that. But I said something on Twitter, and then she messaged me and she challenged me on it. She says, you have these items which I talked about the video in my car, which I said would reform and improve and encourage more guys to get married because it makes it a lot less hostile. She wanted to talk about that, and I spent like 90 minutes talking to this chick who's a lawyer who didn't really want to listen to anything that I was talking about and wanted to argue the nuances of law. And my argument, essentially is, look, either change it to encourage men to do this, or I don't think men should do this at all. Right. Because she's like, oh, well, there's a nuance over here and it could harm women. I'm like, you know how you avoid all of this? Just don't get married. Just don't live in a way that looks like marriage to the state. I've had this conversation with quite a few family lawyers, and it's
Uh-huh.
like most of these guys are close to my age or around my age. And, I talk to them like, so what is your model for dating women or for being with them? Because they're obviously straight heterosexuals. They like women. They're healthy. They're in good shape. They make good money. And they all say the same thing. You can love a woman, but not live with her. And if you just go about it in that way, then you can avoid a lot of the pitfalls of inviting the state into your life. I have a case
I
law
fully
here.
agree. Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
a
because
case
it's
law
you're on
here
about.
that I had my LTR research for me. and it's from New Zealand. I'll probably be covering this next Wednesday, but it's a couple that the guy put his assets into a trust before he took on the relationship, and she moved into this house and they had kids together. But she went back in time and appealed it to the Supreme Court to have them open that asset up.
Oh, was this?
Yeah.
I believe was this the famous case in Canada about the
No,
common
no, no,
law?
no, no,
Oh, was it
no,
not?
no,
My,
no, no.
my
This is a
apologies,
new
yes.
one. This is a new one from
Oh, it's a new
June
one.
of 2023. It's Sutton versus
My
Bell.
apologies.
So I have the
Oh, my
summary
apologies,
here.
yeah.
I'll be talking about that next week, so you guys can understand a little bit better, because it's very similar in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, like any country that sort of
Even the
follows the
UK.
UK model. Yeah,
Yeah,
So, I
common
mean,
law. Yeah. Exactly.
like the move to sort of punish women, I don't understand it. I don't think it has much merit or point, and it sounds very black pill MGTOW to me. I think that if you want to encourage marriage, you have to change the laws to make them less hostile to begin with. The other thing too that a lot of these like Christ pillars don't really understand is they think that the Christ pill solves everything. Like if you just both agree that this rule book or this religious scripture is what should be followed. The problem is 100% of these guys are basically looking for 1% of women. Like there's probably less than 1% of women out there that subscribe to the notion of strong religious values where they're like, I will serve my husband, I will take care of the home, I will bring him children, I will, be agreeable and kind and friendly and all that sort of stuff. But even then they can change their mind 10 years down the road. On Twitter,
I fully agree. So.
What's his name? Tanner Guzzi. I talked about him in my book. I don't know if you know who Tanner is.
Tanner Guzzi.
So Tanner is a
not quite-
Mormon. Yeah, so he's a Mormon sort of style guide, right? So I mentioned his book, The Appearance of Style, in my book, The Unplugged Alpha, and I recommended him as a good resource. We don't see eye to eye. Like I met him years ago. He was there with his wife at the conference. I think they were on their 4th child at the time. She's with his 7th child now. She's pregnant, also Mormon, very religious, Latter-day Saints, all that sort of stuff. Again, he and I did not see eye to eye because of the kind of stuff that I talked about. And he made it very, very clear that he did not want to endorse, co-sign, be friendly about it. But interestingly, in the last week, he's announced on social media that he's getting divorced. And even though they've tried to work it out for 2 years, and she's pregnant with his 7th child, she is going to untie the knot and leave the marriage. Now, Tanner, despite us not seeing eye to eye, is a good man. He's good at being man. He's resourceful. He's tall. He's handsome. He's funny. He's got good character. He's got strong values. And this chick is still going to, pregnant with his 7th child, mind you, is still going to leave him to untie the knot and remove the father from the household, from the kids' lives, probably have custody. What does she think she's going to do? She's going to go on the dating market with 6 kids, pregnant with a 7th, and find another guy? It's just beyond me. And I don't think that there's any real remedy for any of this today, aside from if you want to take the risk, minimize the risk as much as possible by vetting for red flags and doing all the other things, especially living in states that aren't hostile towards fathers, which today is Michigan, Kentucky, Florida, and California in the U.S., where it's default 50-50 custody. But there's not a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself, because women can, at the 7th kid, pregnant with the 7th kid, say, fuck it, I'm out. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.